Champions standing in the Hall of Fame.
This is an absolute monster ticket and going all the way.
Welcome to this week's episode of The Agenda, brought to you by Concave Game Evolved. Visit concave.com. I'm Nick Brown, and once again I'm joined this week by Aaron Kirkby-Rodier. Aaron, thanks for joining me, and what did you think of this week's EFL action?
Thanks, Nick. It was a massive week in EFL football across all four divisions, some amazing results.
Now, Aaron, it was another big week of football in EFL at the weekend. So we're going to take a closer look at some of the key issues and stories from the round, starting with the trend from the weekend, which was teams leading at quarter time, only to be blown away later in the game. So there was five of those. Can you talk us through them?
Yeah, there was. There's some massive ones. I know Bronia, they were up by 3 goals at quarter time. Then they got knocked over by Templestowe by about 5 goals in the end, so that was a big turnaround. There was others as well. Whitehorse, they came out strongly at home against Park Orchards, only to get beaten pretty comfortably as well. I think they were up by 6 goals themselves and ended up losing by around about that margin, so that was a big one. The Donvale Footy Club are up as well at quarter time. They got knocked over by Furniture Gully in the end. The Blackburn Footy Club in their big rivalry game against Vermont at Moreton Park led early, but Vermont came over the top of them in the end. And also Mulgrave, they were up against Donny East, and I think Doncaster East won their first game out Mulgrave since the 1940s, so that's a big victory for them.
So as we saw, it was definitely a trend at the weekend. The other game we'll take a look at is the match between Wanturna South and Mooroolbark, because that was an interesting one as well.
Yeah, it was. The Wanturna South Footy Club started off really, really strong. I think they had 16 shots in the first quarter to Mooroolbark's 2, and they led the game pretty much up to all day. After half-time, Mooroolbark kicked the majority of the goals. They were a little bit like sitting ducks in the end, but they managed to get the job done by 7 points. So that was another cracker of a game, and a good win for Wanturna South, another Division 2 opponent since coming up from Division 3 that they've knocked off.
Now we're going to switch our focus to the top sides of the competition, because after 4 rounds so far there's a few teams starting to break away from the pack. So if we start with Division 1, in Division 1 it's pretty tight at the top, only percentage separating last year's grand finalists Bourne and Vermont. So if we take a look at that one.
Yeah, look, Bourne Footy Club have started really strongly. Obviously, those two teams had a draw a week ago. The Vermont Footy Club, I suppose, have been the big surprise. Plenty of outs, but they're a young side. The young nucleus of that side is pushing them through. But those two, starting to break away. It'd be interesting to see when there's a few more of those teams play each other. But to start the season, those two have really, really broken away from the pack in Division 1. Definitely.
In Division 2, if we stick with Division 1 for a moment, if we look at one side that isn't featuring at the top end of the ladder at this stage, is the reigning premier in Norwood. Are you surprised by that or not, given that they've had such a tough draw to start the season?
Look, I've said a couple of times about Norwood. I think that in the 3 games they've lost, it's a different feeling for them to be, I suppose, the hunted. They've always been the team hunting last year, and the one game I felt like they started maybe not favourites in was the game against Noble Park, and they were able to hunt down them. So maybe there's a little bit of that going on, but look, they've got a pretty similar side that they had to last year, and those players know how to win, so expect them to still come up later in the year.
Absolutely. With Division 2, we've got Croydon, who is sitting on top, undefeated, and they're really setting the pace. They're in Division 2. Will that unbeaten run continue, or do you think we'll see them slip back to the pack?
It's hard to see Croydon losing at the moment. They're playing terrific football. They've beaten some contenders already, obviously Doncaster in round 1. There's a few teams that can catch up to them, but Croydon looked the obvious choice to come out of Division 2 this year.
Okay. Also then, following Croydon, there's Wanturna South, Waverley Blues, Bayswater and Doncaster East, all with a 3-1 records. Very exciting start to the season.
Yeah, it is. As I said, I think Croydon are probably a little bit ahead of those teams at the moment, but there's that next pack of 3 sides that you spoke about that have started the season terrifically well, and they've had some really good games. So it's going to be a really good final series again in Division 2 come the end of the season.
Okay. With Division 3, we've got the Basin and Mitcham, who are both 2 sides yet to suffer a loss after the first 4 weeks in Division 3, with the Basin just ahead by percentage. Are you predicting a 2-horse race in Division 3?
Well, look, I'm not sure at this stage. I mean, those two obviously have stood out so far. The Basin being a massive surprise packet this season. They've knocked off Upper Gully on the weekend, who I think are a little bit more fancied in that game around the league. So they're playing some terrific footy, and Mitcham are continuing on a good season they had last year. So look, we could see those two in the grand final, but there's certainly teams like Upper Gully and that around the mark as well.
Okay. And last but not least, we look at Division 4. So we see Warrandyte, who is the only side not to have lost a match at this point, and they sit on top. But there are a few sides not far behind. Who are they?
Yeah, look, Warrandyte started the year terrifically well. We went out and saw them on the weekend, and they were playing some great footy. They do look like they're a little bit of a league above. I mean, Forest Hill are still going to be there. They look a good side as well. Look, there's a few other teams around there, but I think if you're going to pick those two sides, they'd be the two I'd be looking to play in the grand final at the moment. Ferntree Gully are playing some good footy, and the Eastern Lions, they're a team that's really coming up this season.
Let's take a break from the football for a moment to talk about the EFL's netball competition, which is going top guns at the moment. So the players and those directly involved will know just how well it is going, and it's great because it's only in its second season and already it's a great competition, so that's a credit to all those involved. We'll take a look at the action from the 4 divisions from the netball, starting with Division 1. So in Division 1, it's a bit like the footy at the moment. It's pretty tight at the top.
Yeah, it is, and netball EFL's flying along beautifully. Obviously, we spoke about last week all the new teams involved, and if you get a chance, get down there and have a look on a Friday night. It's terrific. A lot of the players getting down this year and watching their teams play in the netball. So, as you spoke about, top of Division 1, the Eastern Lions, we spoke about them last week. They were dominating through the grading games, and they've started the season really well. Also, Croydon and East Ringwood Blue are sitting 2-0 on top of the ladder. So, yeah, nice and tight there.
Definitely. And in Division 2, very much the same. We saw some history made last week.
Yeah, we did. We had the first draw between Upper Gully and Norwood. So that's great. Yeah, history, the first draw in Division 2. And also some big goal scorers there. We had Wilson for Upper Gully with 34 and also Duke for Norwood with 37. So some big goal scorers down there.
Absolutely. And looking at Division 3, so from Division 3, we can see there that Mirrabah are making an early statement.
Yeah, they are. They've had 2 really close wins, but they're the only team undefeated after 2 rounds, which is remarkable, really, to only have one team that's undefeated.
And then Division 4, the ladder seems to be divided into thirds there.
Yeah, it is. You've got a couple of teams up the top, Coldstream Blue, the Basin Red and Forest Hill on top, undefeated with 3-0. And you've got a couple of teams in the middle, Ringwood Black and Whitehorse on 1-1, and then a few other teams down the bottom, South Croydon, Montrose and the Basin without a win. So, yeah, it's interesting. You've got separate divisions there, and they're all very, very different.
It's time for the EFL TV Player of the Week, brought to you by Westfield Knox. And here's the nominations from round 4.
Up towards the wing position, tried to scoop it in there, was turned, got the handball away, and here they go through Appleby over the top. This is looking promising. Appleby goes to the old one too. It's a famous football move, and it's a brilliant goal to boot. Fantastic play by the Warrandyte Football Club.
Some great highlights there, Nick. The last week's winner was David Johnson with a play B with a massive screamer. Make sure you get your votes in again for this week's.
Now, most weeks we have a player or an official celebrating a milestone. This week we have a huge one with the Doncaster Football Club playing its 1,000th game, which is a huge milestone and no doubt one the club's very excited and proud of.
Yeah, it's massive. We've had quite a few the last couple of years now, 1,000th game, and it's going to be good. The Doncaster Sharks are going to actually be wearing a jumper, which is going to commemorate both the jumpers the club's worn over the time, and also they're going to have the surname of every player that's played senior footy for the club. So it's going to be a special day. Congratulations to everybody involved with the club, and yeah, very exciting day on Saturday.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of The Agenda, brought to you by Concave Game Evolved. Visit concave.com. And in the meantime, if you want to keep up to date with everything EFL, head to the EFL website, which is www.efl.org.au, or follow us on social media, which is @FootyEFL. And until next week, keep safe and remember, #LoveItLocal.